Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming. My name is Makenna, and I'm a senior here at Wellesley College, now well into my final semester. And what an incredible capstone to my time here. I couldn't be more excited to be speaking with you all today about what I believe is the future of historic preservation, digital documentation. Now, I have to begin by saying that I'm a Californian and a history buff, and as such, one of the preservation projects closest to my heart is that of the El Camino Real, the system of missions, towns, and military garrisons established under Spanish rule, which run from beautiful San Diego in the south over 500 miles north to the small town of Sonoma. It is one of the central features of the California State fourth grade history curriculum and forms the basis of the California fourth grade mission project, a messy styrofoam and flour paste model of a church and one of the most formative educational experiences in any elementary schooler's life. I had the opportunity to come full circle on my own mission project this year, but instead of a plastic ruler, I was going to have access to a 3D scanner, the world's most accurate laser measurement and documentation technology in the world. Now, these briefcase-sized scanners have come a long way since they were first developed. Here is what the first incarnations of these devices looked like. A little cumbersome, right? Certainly not conducive to a quick setup and breakdown in the field, but a whole lot better than the tedious and kind of subjective process of hand surveying. Well, they've continued to shrink and to produce higher quality data. So the most recent models are scanning at a rate of almost 1 million points per second, a huge improvement over the 500 or so that a surveyor might take by hand in a day. And unlike a surveyor, a scanner is able to capture the full surface of an object, down to cracks and even subtle deformations, mapped within millimeters of accuracy. Traditionally, buildings have been documented by sending a team out into the field where they take measurements to the nearest quarter of an inch or so and then come back and produce hand-drawn plans like these, which themselves can take almost 6 months to produce. Instead, we can scan a site in a matter of hours or days and then extrapolate plans from those scans. The power behind 3D scanning is LiDAR, which stands for light detection and ranging, and it's a remote sensing technology that some of you may have heard about before. There have been some really exciting discoveries made using LiDAR mounted to the underside of planes to probe the dense forest floor in the Amazonian rainforest, turning up previously unknown archaeological sites. Though we use LiDAR contained in this little machine, it works on the same principle. Video, please. Essentially, it emits a beam of light and then analyzes the reflected light. The scanner then registers how long it takes for the light to make its return, and using a set of internal mirrors, establishes horizontal and vertical angles to collect points with accurate X, Y, and Z coordinates. The collection of points taken by a single scan is then recorded as a point cloud, which is what we see here and here. So though this is only sort of a fog of discrete points, their density actually causes them to mimic a solid surface. But because the laser is only using visible light rather than something like infrared, it only records the surface that it sees rather than the underlying structure. Likewise, because it only records what it sees, the user actually has to reposition the scanner around the site in order to capture an object in the round. There may be dozens of individual scans taken at any one site, inside, outside, in doorways, etc. But most importantly, there have to be areas of overlap between all of the sites, because once all of the data has been collected, they are then joined to form a complete point cloud, like the one you see here. At the same time that scanning is happening, we're also taking panoramic photos to add real-world color and the appearance of texture to these point clouds. Now, the resolution on these 3D images is so fine that depending on the space being scanned, a full data set can include billions of points and take up many terabytes of data. I had the opportunity to work with an organization that is putting LiDAR to use, digitally documenting the world's cultural heritage sites. CyArk is one of the most innovative organizations in the field of heritage preservation, and I was honored to be a part of their ongoing digital El Camino Real project and its efforts to document all 21 missions, 4 presidios, and 3 pueblos that make up the historic route. CyArk is the first organization to undertake the digital documentation of historic sites en masse. They've completed over 100 projects to date on 5 continents, and the list continues to grow. CyArk's roots are in this technology. CyArk's founder, Ben Kassira, an Iraqi-born civil engineer, was one of the first developers of the integrated 3D scanner and software system that is now in use today. However, it was not until 2001 that it found what I think is really its most noble application. When the Taliban destroyed the Bamiyan Buddhas in Afghanistan, Kassira was deeply moved by this devastating loss and realized that the technology that he had developed for use by engineers could have revolutionary applications in the field of heritage preservation. He proposed creating a sort of cyber archive of some of the world's most recognizable and endangered cultural monuments from around the world, a place for everyone to go to experience our common global heritage. By taking hyper-accurate 3D scans, CyArk not only preserves these treasures for generations to come, but also makes them uniquely accessible to us today. In contrast to the proprietary attitude that often plagues the field of heritage preservation, CyArk disseminates all of the data that they collect online for free at their website, archive.cyark.org. Video, please. CyArk has also created their own 3D viewer to allow you and anyone to view and even take measurements off of their point clouds without any additional software. They also produce fly-throughs of sites and mobile apps, which can supplement a physical tourism experience or provide a wholly virtual one. CyArk now hosts dozens of cultural monuments from around the world, both the big names in world culture like Rapa Nui, Chichen Itza, and Mount Rushmore, but also some more unexpected sites like historic Deadwood, South Dakota, or Marble House in Newport, Rhode Island. When I came to the project, I was new to digital preservation and completely unfamiliar with the technology. I had no idea of the amazing visualization capabilities or conservation implications of 3D scanning. But what I was all too aware of are the threats facing the California missions. Many of the old adobe structures have both water and insect damage. But the real risk to any structure in the state of California is earthquakes. And the El Camino Real actually straddles the infamous and highly active San Andreas fault line, making it uniquely endangered by seismic activity. So much so that in 1995, the California State Legislature mandated that every structure on the route undergo retrofitting by 2015. However, in a state plagued by budget deficits and cuts to state parks, this call has gone largely unheeded, even as the probability of a devastating quake continues to rise. But of course, natural disasters are really one of the many threats facing our cultural heritage. Across the world, the rate of decline and disappearance of these sites is accelerating. It's not only the result of events such as fires, storms, or natural disasters, but sadly human-caused as well. Pollution, unchecked urban development, rising sea levels, and even war threaten to claim our common heritage. But of course, Irina Bokova, the Director General of UNESCO, stated in a recent interview, "Destroying the inheritance of the past, which is the legacy for future generations, serves no purpose except that of deepening hatred and despair." I could hardly agree more. However, I must add that hatred and despair are not only the results of cultural destruction, but the causes as well. Images like these I find profoundly upsetting. Not only do they represent a great disrespect for the culture which produced them, but their loss disadvantages the entire world. In February of 2009, CyArk undertook the documentation of the beautiful tombs of the Buganda kings at Kasubi, Uganda. This collection of completely organic structures has served as the burial ground for the ancient Buganda kings since 1820. Fieldwork went smoothly, and a project that could ordinarily take days or even weeks was wrapped up in only one day. 1 year later, 190 years after their construction, the once great domes burned. However, when the smoke cleared, the government reached out to CyArk and wanted to know if this data was available. Thankfully, in this case, the answer is yes, and reconstruction efforts continue to this day. But of course, not all victories can be so spectacular, and we always hope that this data will be used for conservation rather than reconstruction, as it was at Mission Carmel, one of the 21 El Camino Real missions. In 2012, when Mission Carmel underwent its retrofitting, they discovered that there were a series of roof trusses which needed to be replaced. Not only was each one slightly different as the result of being cut by hand, but their cramped and elevated location within the roof made them virtually inaccessible to contractors. In this case, LiDAR's ability to quickly and accurately model in confined spaces allowed us to have all of the trusses prefabricated off-site, saving the project a huge amount of both time and expense. But Mission Carmel is fortunate to be one of those missions which still functions as a church with a highly active parish community. And many sites do not have the same support. They struggle even to cover operating costs. Despite their historic connections, the missions seem fragmented. However, as they are digitized one by one, their common past can now be explored as never before. An online format offers a dramatically more interactive experience. Interactive maps like these, which allow the viewer to trace the development of the Spanish northward along the coast, are complemented with modern Google Earth data, which allow the viewer to see just how differently each mission has developed. And modern and archival photos are complemented with CyArk's point clouds, which allow you to experience the diversity of Spanish New World architecture simultaneously. These revolutionary tools have already started to make their way into classrooms. However, the goal is really that they find a much wider audience, a global audience. We hope that by sharing this history in a way that makes it feel both personal and tangible, we can inspire curiosity and lead others to value global heritage as their own. Thank you.